We can now get some studio analysis with France 24's international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert. Now, Doug, the West was unable to stop this invasion. Is there anything it can still do at this point?
It's really between a rock and a hard place. Here's the thing. You obviously, you have a lot of hawks who would say that the West should intervene militarily. Not too many of them, but, until now, NATO has been very clear, the U.S. has been very clear that they are not going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine for understandable reasons. First of all, Ukraine is not a NATO member. They fear an asymmetrical escalation of the war. If you get Western troops in any way, shape, or form involved on the ground in Ukraine, we have seen in the past, because Putin has made it very clear, he responds asymmetrically. So you fire one shot, he fires 10. And he sees the world through a completely different prism than perhaps the NATO with its strategic military planning may see it. So what NATO's limits have been is to basically make sure, A, that Ukraine is well supplied with ammunition so that Ukrainian soldiers can defend themselves. And they have made it very clear, the Ukrainian army has said that they will defend themselves. They have no illusions that they are no match for Putin's forces and the Russian army. They're up against a tremendous army, about 10 times the size in terms of manpower, in terms of the budget that's been spent on it, vastly outnumbered and outgunned. What they could hope to do, the Ukrainian army in its own self-defense, is to perhaps slow the Russian advance, thwart the Russians in certain places. They're not going to perhaps forestall the ultimate outcome. If Putin wants to take Ukraine, Putin's will shall be done. So once again, it gets back to the question you asked me. So what can NATO do, right? Don't want to go to war because you don't want this to escalate into World War III and something nuclear. And Putin, in the name of getting what Putin wants, isn't thinking in these terms. He will go as far as he has to go. And anyone, even pessimists didn't perhaps see the full scale of what this invasion today has been, coming from all points, north, east, and south, straight into Ukraine, blast explosions across the country. What they could do is help the frontline states, the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, to be better equipped, better prepared. They're the ones who know Russia best, have the longest history with having been former Soviet states, Soviet vassals, if you will, and also Poland as well. The real fear here is, what if you have, gunfights and chases of Ukrainians, either troops or civilians or whatever, escaping across the border into neighboring Poland, just to the west. And you have sort of Russian gunships or Russian, troops sort of chasing them over the border. It seems like an outlandish, ludicrous scenario, but then a million of these things that we're seeing today, just a few days ago, we would have all been saying outlandish, ludicrous. Putin may be a little irrational, but he's not that insane. He's not going to do that. So, you're never going to lose money underestimating Putin here. And we're seeing exactly that. Just when you think you might have strategically analyzed him and you have him and you sort of understand what he's going to do next, you don't. So there are no good options right now for NATO. If there's a silver lining, you could say, yes, NATO's shown unity here. European Union, it has brought them closer together. There's still fissures in that edifice. You still see Italy and Germany a little more hesitant than, say, the rest of the bloc. And Putin knows that very well. He still sees the fissures, the cracks, the divisions. He knows that in the time he can take and have his will done and do what he wants in Ukraine, that will be the time that it takes NATO to rev up and to paper over its differences and to get on board. As for the sanctions, they're not really going to do much. Even the heaviest sanctions are something that Putin has made clear. He scoffs at them. He could take as much pain as anyone, perhaps, and he's willing to, and he doesn't really care at the end of the day how much suffering there is. What is most important is his vision of the way the map should be drawn, his version of revisionist history, and that his falsification of history be presented as a fait accompli on the ground. And that's it. So, yeah, it's a very grim assessment. But right now at this hour, the most NATO could do is continue to basically go through those motions that it has been doing. Show unity, help Ukraine to defend itself, help the frontline states to be ready to defend itself in the event that things really come to a worst-case scenario and this thing spills over from the post-Soviet space into a NATO-allied country.